We do not need any introduction sequence here. The Mount Coast M1 has finally arrived. We have been waiting for this one for a long time. Kudos to Mount Coast for announcing this one early, but you can't hold the trail running hordes back. They've been ravenous, looking forward to getting their feet into this new model here. For those of you that have been impatiently waiting, it's still not a fall release. It's early August. Let's call that late summer. UTMB is still a few weeks away, and of course, you've got plenty of lead time to test these out if you have a fall ultra planned. I'm starting my climb here, hopefully, and it's looking like into bluer skies. We're still dealing with pretty bad wildfire smoke, but as you may be able to tell, it's settling down much worse in the valley. Before I dig into the specs and key details here, take a look back at the video prior to this one. A little bit of roundup of some very nice shoes that I have in for test. I cover sizing details of this M1 model, especially as it pertains to other Mount Coast models. So if you are not interested at all in what I have to say in this video, well, I shouldn't say that. You're probably definitely interested in what I have to say about this model, but if you're gonna buy it no matter what, take a look at that video just to double check you are ordering your right size. Without repeating myself too much today, I do have a US 10 EU 44 here. The short answer is I would go with your typical Mount Coast sizing in this M1. There's some fit differences which I have covered in that previous video, but I would go with the same numbered sizing here. Wow, it looks like they have gotten busy on this trail over here recently. Widened it for sure, and it is so hot and dry. Lots of moon dust here. All the more reason for Mount Coast to step up with their design of their proprietary trail gaiter here that will work with the loops that they already have on their shoes. We're needing that, especially if you're running in any kind of dust or dirt underfoot that looks like this. Yeti has described this M1 as their mountain cruiser, and if that is the tagline that they are officially going with, I do concur. So it appears the trail is closed beyond here, which is a huge bummer. I ran a little ahead because there's no sign at this intersection, and the guy said something about closed from a rock, which maybe this one or that one. Man, this sucks. This looks terrible now. All right, change of plans here, change of route. That's okay. This is a good little section here. Lots of rolling ups and downs and some fun parts that'll give me some good fodder to talk about the M1 here. In my US 10 here, EU 44, I've got 10.1 ounces, 285 grams. Stack height is specified and I have confirmed at 38-34. That's a 4 mil drop. The key feature here is Mount Coast new Jet Cell midsole. They've been really good about putting out content on their socials, even I believe on their website, ahead of the release, explaining some of the details and how they came up with this very advanced midsole here. So I'm not going to rehash all of that. You can check that out for yourself. It is an ATPU foam, and as you may or may not know, ATPU, along with various flavors of TPEE, is the future of running midsole foams. A lot of the top super shoes on the market are moving to these foams, and I'm seeing more of a movement towards ATPU, especially for performance models. Mount Coast, through their lab testing, claims similar, if not enhanced levels of rebound and responsiveness compared to PIBA with, and this is the key here, enhanced durability, which is especially pertinent out on the trails. Previous to this newer range of ATPU midsoles hitting the market, you might have seen lots of softer, bouncy, energetic foams resorting to things like wrapping the foam in some type of protective film or layer, or going with dual layer setups using something more durable such as your run-of-the-mill standard EVA, just to protect, say, an inner carrier of a softer, more energetic foam. So not only is ATPU generally a more dynamic and responsive foam due to that durability factor that you have here with Mount to Coast flavor of jet cell, you're also able to get more volume of that dynamic foam packed into the midsole. Of course, this is full ATPU here, instead of having to integrate those protective layers in even heavier and less responsive, say, run-of-the-mill EVA foams. That dynamic ride, that energetic, bouncy feel underfoot is clearly evident the first few steps you take in the M1. I think it's also especially notable when you consider the fact that there are no types of stiffening elements inside of the shoe. No carbon plate, no film, no rock protection insert or anything like that. You've got straight ATPU energy directly underfoot on top of full coverage Vibram Mega Grip light base with traction lugs. Oh, and another key feature update to mention is they are now using a supercritical insole as well. Not sure the exact formulation, I'll check on that, but gone are the ortholite insoles, which I do not like, of the H1 and some of their road models. I do think the T1 had what's felt like a regular EVA insole. I do find it interesting that Mount to Coast went with a 4 mil drop for the M1. 4 mil is the same drop as they have in the T1, which is their technical trails model. The H1 does ride at 6 mil. You will see a lot of those all-mountain models, especially ultra-oriented trail shoes, kind of consolidating around that 5 to 6 mil drop mark, but perhaps Mount to Coast wanted to differentiate this one a little bit more from their H1, which a lot of their athletes and a lot of other runners seem to be using in quite legitimate trail running scenarios, not just a hybrid capacity. Little connecting road segment here on my modified route. It feels actually okay on the road despite having that full Vibram outsole, 4 millimeter lugs. That bouncy, cushiony jet cell midsole foam does seem to offset what you would expect to be a little bit of a firmer ride with this type of full coverage outsole. Speaking of which, I got the chance to sit down for tea with Yeti over at TrailCon. He was talking about all of the Mount to Coast models in depth, the technology that went into them, and of course, focusing on M1 and actually all of their different midsole foams. One thing they did mention is they had increased the stack height of this one from earlier pre-production models, and I believe they went up around 2 millimeters from their initial design, and that was based on feedback wanting a softer feel underfoot. He talked a lot about this being a full coverage outsole without any cutouts or splits in the rubber, how that kind of holds back ground feel with an outsole like the T1 has a bunch of cutouts in there, and that kind of disperses the impact and lets more of the feel of the ground get through to your feet. And in the absence of any of that, they wanted to ensure that you did have enough cushion underfoot, perhaps if you weren't feeling the ground quite as much with this full coverage outsole. I'm rolling down a bit of lesser used trails here. Bit fun. I am heading downhill right now, a little bit uneven, not as groomed underfoot, so I'm getting quite good stability, and I found that in general with my M1 testing. I've run all types of varied terrain in this one: flat gravel running, lower foothills, smooth dirt, did some of my typical little bit medium foothills higher up, kind of moderate trails running, and also a bit of steep off-trail technical stuff over in Sun Valley. Stability is one area I think you're gonna have to manage with this shoe. It is an all-mountain shoe, but with this energetic ATPU foam I've been talking about, full coverage outsole, there's quite a lot of bounciness to it, and I find that stability is not quite there 100% if you want to get into that, say, faster style running, maybe all out 50K or even shorter distances. When I heard Mount to Coast mention that this was going to be their all mountain cruiser model, that did stand out to me as I started my testing, because I find that when the trail gets moderate, even uneven, as long as it's somewhat level in front of you, I find that it's okay and it handles it pretty well. But if it gets rugged and, say, a lot of side hilling, anytime where your foot is on a slant, that ATPU foam is going to work against you a little bit. Rocky, technical, extremely uneven terrain. I don't think this is the ideal shoe for that, although it's going to depend on the distance and duration that you're going. You may come across sections of that kind of stuff within the course of, say, a 24-hour, 100-mile race. In that case, you can certainly manage it at the paces you will be going for the advantages of the shoe in the majority of the other sections. Quick stop, take a look at the shoe here. If you'll notice, I did adjust my lacing here, and that is partly to get a little better foothold. I talked about it being a little loose underfoot. I'm feeling like when I'm side hilling or when it gets very technical, I just find the shoe wanting to move around a lot, and that is something that is typical to any type of bouncy shoe that's like this. It just kind of wants to bounce all over the place, and you have to try to keep an eye out to make sure you have level foot placements wherever you're going. And just to get a better feel, I did lower my upper lacing down one row here, so I kept it for demonstration here on the left shoe. This is your standard tuned fit lacing here, same as other Mount to Coast shoes. You got this toggle on the lower section and 3 rows of laces up here on the top, and you can loosen this up. I find this is quite nice. The smoother terrain that you are running, if you are doing, say, gravel running or some type of long distance that's generally flat, and you just like the feel, the ride of this shoe, you like the bounciness of the jet cell, but you need perhaps an outsole like this in whatever event or course that you are running, it is nice to be able to like loosen up this lower section independently. If you're staying on level terrain, generally flat, perhaps rolling, it's okay to have your foot kind of having extra space or in the toe box here. And at least for me, I like to have this really locked down. But as soon as you get into more moderate terrain, more type of mountain running, especially the stuff that you're going to see up in Sun Valley that was, what, a week or two ago, I found my foot kind of moving inside the shoe, the steeper and kind of more off camber it got. And this is one thing that I think helps a lot. I may perhaps switch these out to regular lacing, but I think this does work just as well. What I did is I basically lowered the upper lacing. There's just enough lacing to do this, by the way. It makes these a little short, but it's okay, at least for my foot volume. So I went down one more row here. So the lower laces are going through this upper gilly area right here, and then I just brought down the upper laces to overlap in that same lace row there, so you can see this one here. So I've essentially got 2 sections of lacing over this row right here, and it does feel better. You know, this can feel like it's kind of a big section of the foot that is a little bit looser if it is the case that you want to keep this tuned fit section looser, and also you've got nothing across the middle here, so you are kind of disconnected. You could see they give a little cutout here to improve flex. I'm not sure if that is especially doing anything. I would rather have that area covered up by a lacing row, because that is more or less in the middle of the foot. And I think I am feeling, it's very slight, it's not like a groundbreaking difference. But I think if you are getting into more moderate and more technical terrain, this is something I would recommend. At least you can do this and keep the tune fit section down here. And if you are going into, say, easier terrain in this shoe or a race or anything like that, you could always like switch it back rather than, say, cutting this off and going to a full regular lacing here. So this has been working out really well for me so far. I feel like it's just holding the foot better here, and it moves that kind of looser, kind of in the toe box ground feel area, toes spreading out kind of feel. It moves it like a little like further down in the shoe. So let's go back in time here. About a week ago over in Sun Valley, just climbed straight up a little bit of a mountainside there, ran a little bit of a rocky ridge so you can get a look at how this shoe performs in steep and rocky terrain, certainly off camber terrain, and even off trail. Just crossed 7,000 feet, almost exactly 1 mile in, and 450 feet of gain. Whoa there. Just hit 2 miles on this route here. I'm at 7,975 feet. Climbing is definitely ramped up. Touch less than 1,000 feet in this last mile or so. Essentially following game tracks off and on up the hillside here. Trying to make it up to that saddle there. Well, I made it to the top of this rock here. Not sure exactly if this one has a name or that one over there does. I've been up to both of them. One of these is called Johnstone, I believe. Not sure what I'm on right now. I may run a little more on this ridge because I've just been climbing for so long. The trail from where I'm staying down in that valley there kind of peters out somewhere at the bottom there, and I know you could go through these woods, but I went up that thing there, just the exposed hillside over there up to this saddle. You can go up that way again, and there's a path that I think it's Bear Creek, something like that. I've never gone over and gone down that way. There's a whole pile of sheep in that little crevice there. They were like, I saw the horses and had the smells and everything. I was wondering what was going on. Yeah, they're tucked up in there, making a lot of noise. Looks like my shins took a beating here, but hey, get away from me. But the Mountain Coast M1s here look perfectly fine for all that off-trail I guess, sheep path traversing there. The one thing that wasn't great was the side hilling. There was some kind of extreme side hilling as I kind of angled my way towards this side over here. But, you know, any kind of shoe, certainly at this stack height, I was kind of like sliding down on that edge, but that's an extreme side hilling situation. The climbing as I was heading up that steep part, it's just a lot of sagebrush and kind of like wonky game and I guess sheep trails again. And the handle is just fine. No problems with traction aside from a few slips in there. Again, I'm stepping on kind of broken, dried out, you know, sagebrush trunks and things like that, loose rock all over the place. So everything was great, nice and comfortable, very protective underfoot. Didn't feel any lack of ground feel coming up there. Felt great. Of course, that kind of steepness, you know, heading straight up, and we'll see on the descent, but that kind of steepness, you'd want to have something ideally a little bit closer to the ground for more feel and more stability. But if this was just part of a course you're running, like the race that I'm volunteering at tomorrow, the Stanhope 60K and 100 miler, if this was just part of the course and you had to handle a lot more runnable and rugged sections, flatter sections, both on dirt, a lot of those connecting fire roads, which can be pretty rough on their own, plus single track trail, essentially a mix of everything, then you'd want to be in a shoe like this. Not one of those thin ones that would be ideal for the climbing that I just did. So that was just a little short traverse over from there through here. Not a trail, obviously, as you saw. I did notice a little bit of slidiness. Again, this is essentially running on very rocky, very uneven, essentially unpredictable stuff underneath. And I noticed my foot kind of sliding around inside of the shoe. This is one of my, I think I've got, this is my second or third run in this one, and may have to tighten down a little bit. I do have a US 10 here, so again, I'm up in my ultra sizing, not necessarily looking to tackle stuff like this for any extended stretches, more like a mix, some small parts of this, but a lot of, say, kind of even sections of this, if anything. But did notice a little bit of foot movement in there, and on top of this jet cell, it's not going to be like super stable compared to shoes with more ground feel. Again, I'm gonna play around with this upper a little more. May try regular laces, we'll see, or I might just like dial them down a little bit tighter, especially if I'm gonna go downhill in these, just to kind of keep the foot in check a little bit. It's moving around inside the shoe quite a bit when, you know, when it's shifting like this, not when you have stable footing, obviously. All right, so the trail definitely carries on down this side of the ridge, but that's not where I came from. I came from this side, so I'm gonna have to route my way, or I'll check how far around it is that way, or I have to route my way down through here. Nope, that way is too far for tonight, so down I go. I'm gonna have to tighten up further downhill, quite off trail and quite steep. This is a scenario where I don't think this tune fit lacing system is an advantage, because I want to get pretty dialed for this descent here, and I'm missing a section here of lace cross, and that's right in the middle of the foot. So this is a scenario where I'm about to head into where I would prefer to have full laces and just really make sure the center of the foot is dialed here. I do have much better confidence in the foothold here when I'm going straight up and straight down. I think it's the unevenness and like the side hilling that is not confidence inspiring, which is challenging for a lot of shoes anyway. I do have full confidence in traction in this Vibram Mega Grip though. As I'm working my way down here, you could probably tell I'm picking my spots to kind of take little hops down and jump around here and there when I can. And quite confident that, spoke too soon. That was a rolling log though. Can't blame Vibram Mega Grip for a log that rolls underneath your feet. I don't think you can. That's not fair. But it's actually quite fun. Most scenarios here, so I'm stepping on stuff that is not going to roll or not roll too much. I am feeling pretty confident here. It does seem like, according to my watch here, I may pop out somewhere that I can work my way up. I guess down there, maybe in a shady section in there, likely a runnable section of actual trail. Woo! There we go. Oh, here we are. Whew! Sweet trail. Here's my friends again. Don't worry, I'm not lost. All right, so what'd you think of that route, especially coming back down to where I was camping? That's definitely a little bit beyond what I would recommend taking these shoes out in. Certainly, I would say beyond what these shoes are designed for. In the meantime, over here, I carried on down a little bit, turned around, came back up that wobbly kind of double track. This is actually not uncommon from what you'll see in large sections of ultras out here in the American West. A lot of times connecting sections will be like this, or various degrees of smooth to rugged to kind of surface of Mordor fire roads out here. Wanted to touch a little bit on the ground platform and outsole here compared to other Mount to Coast models. M1 is similar in terms of the ground platform. I laid them down side by side with the H1 forefoot, midfoot, right about the same, within a millimeter or two. The rear is a little bit wider in this M1, and I think that makes sense. They want to enhance the stability of this foam, this jet cell. There's more of it, of course. Stack height's just a touch higher, and it's definitely more energetic than that circle cell. Circle cell is obviously energetic in its own right, but ATPU here certainly noticeable bounce and giving you something a little bit wider under the heel just for stability. Also working in conjunction with a touch of sidewalls there. The sidewalls ride a little bit higher on the inside of the foot, giving you that support on the inside of the arch. And on the outside, the sidewalls ride or rise up a little bit higher, closer to the heel area, giving you that stability, perhaps on landings on steep descents. So again, just another consideration here in terms of giving you added stability with this more energetic foam. Just crossed back over the road there. I'm 9 miles into this run. It's absolutely flown by so far. Got about, say, 4 or 5 miles to go. So it'll be 13 or 14 miles by the end. This has all the feels of a long distance shoe. 100K, 100 miles, whatever you want to call it. Foam underfoot, energetic enough, and also protective enough to give you this consistent feel and ride over the course of that type of long distance ultra. I think it's fantastic that there's an option for that type of distance race that does not rely on any type of protection and even a propulsion plate to work. There are aspects of this M1 that do rely on a certain amount of care being taken to keep them under control, similar to what you would expect in a carbon fiber shoe, but you don't have that inherent stiffness and sometimes that inherent firmness that can creep up on you in the later stages of a long race. And speaking of comfort underfoot, you also have to consider comfort all around the foot. Talked about this in my M1 demo run video out at TrailCon, and also this sizing video just a touch yesterday. This is by far one of the most comfortable fitting and comfortable toe boxes, especially out there in the trail running game. Beautiful rounded shape up front. I just love it. I'm wearing these CEP socks here, a little extra cushioning the heel and the toes. There's enough space in here to accommodate that easily. If you want kind of more feel, lesser sock, you can dial down the laces a bit, get just as good of a feel, but I like to kind of fill up the volume in the toe box with these socks here. I find that works great for my particular foot shape. And again, having the room to accommodate that in a shoe that you can rely on for, say, 10, 12, 15, 20 plus hours. That is certainly something to look forward to in your fall ultras or beyond into next year, of course. The ride of the M1 is very versatile and adaptable across various grades. Of course, smoother, rolling terrain just feels spectacular. Everything you've seen me running on out here today, you probably even noticed a little bit of agility here and there. Again, as long as it's not too crazy, as long as you can spot your foot placements and control the bounce of that Jet Cell midsole, it can definitely be quite an agile shoe for its stack height and relative to its bounciness. I do think this lacing on my right shoe there, getting a little bit better tension lower down on the foot, that's certainly helping with agility here. Moderate climbs and even steeper grades for that matter are also going to feel nice and smooth. Again, with the absence of any type of stiffening plate inside of the shoe. It just feels like easy roll into the toe when you're climbing. There's a significant rocker up front, but I don't think it's as aggressive as the H1. It does seem to be giving you a wider, or let's say longer from front to back landing zone here. And again, we're always talking about stability once you're ramping up the energy and bounciness of a midsole foam. So again, any type of grades probably short of what you saw in my little off-trail Sun Valley test run. That is a little bit off-trail, a little bit too rugged for this one, but anything within reasonable runnable range, this M1 should handle it really well. If you are considering purchasing this M1 and you do find my humble running content helpful, I have an affiliate link in the description down below. It will bring you directly to the Mount Coast homepage, and you can browse straight over to the M1 since it is released now, and actually even any other Mount Coast model. And that 10% humble running discount code should be automatically populated when you go to check out. Full disclosure, and this is new for me in Mount Coast, it is an affiliate link and I will earn a small commission on your purchases. Doesn't cost you anything extra. Of course, does save you 10%. So if you want to support humble running, kind of a win-win there. But of course, my product, shoe, and gear reviews are fully independent. I do not share them with Mount Coast or any other brand. Before you see them, I do not take direction or otherwise get compensated for these reviews. Discount code is there to help you and support humble running. But again, completely 100% honest and independent reviews here at Humble Running. Before I finish my final little segment here, take a look around at the shoe here. Lovely upper here from Mount Coast. Again, plenty spacious in the toe box here. Talked about that in the demo run fit and sizing video. You have just a couple of underlays wrapping each side of the foot here. It's quite transparent here. Good breathability. Easy to blow air through there. I like that they went with a single layer mesh upper here. A lot of shoes are going with that inner liner, outer mesh situation. This one isn't quite as open as you will see in those kind of dual layer setups, but again, you don't have the inner booty liner like fully encompassing the toe box as you have seen in other notable models. So you just have that mesh here. Even the gussets are a little bit smallish. Just kind of like thin gussets on the side, similar to other Mount Coast models. I don't think you need a lot riding around the side of the shoe. They do well to keep this tongue in place. Standard Mount Coast tongue here. Pretty nice, pretty soft, pretty padded here. No frills, no fuss. Same thing all around the ankle collar. I can't recall, and no, and this is 100% here, I have not gotten any ankle bite, heel, or Achilles rubbing in any Mount Coast model. And this is essentially the same padding along the interior of the ankle, heel, and Achilles here. Again, no frills, no fuss. It feels kind of lightweight here. It's definitely a smoother material, so you're not going to get any kind of friction irritation for sure. It's that same type of material on the underside of the tongue. So everything that's wrapping against the upper portion of your foot here, nice and smooth, nice and soft. And it does feel like the foam, whatever they've got inside here, it doesn't feel as dense and heavy as some other models that, you know, they really pad up the heel for comfort, but then you could kind of feel like, oh, this is going to hold water, or it just feels like it's heavyish here. Again, I think 10.1 ounces on this shoe here, so obviously at this stack height, you've got a lightweight foam. I would say it's not a stripped down upper here like some other crazy thin upper models, and also a lot of models are skimping with the heel padding, bolstering around the Achilles area. You don't have any of that here. They're definitely keeping an eye towards that long distance ultra comfort here, not skimping on any of that cushion comfort materials on the inside of the shoe. And it just shows with how I just have not had any irritation anywhere in any of these shoes. Probably the toe box is the only thing not in this shoe, I would say, across the board from Mount Coast. H1 in that smaller 9.5, a little tapered at the pinky, and the T1 does have a little narrower toe box, as I've talked about before, but those are just differences in the style of the shoe. Yank out this insole here. Again, this is could be ATPU, not exactly sure, I will confirm, but it's not ortholite as in the H1. I swapped those out anyway in the H1, so no issue for me there, but it's nice to see Mount Coast moving forward with a more premium insole there. Look at the geometry here I was talking about just before I got here. It seems like front to back, it does feel like you have a wider, or let's say, again, making a mistake there, longer platform here. It's an even toe sweep up front. I do think the H1 kind of sweeps up a little steeper, and it is, again, a little pointier at the front of the toe box there, so it's more like this and a little pointy. This one, more solid, unstable on the ground here, old mountain shoe, as you would expect here. Vibram Mega Grip. Traction lugs here, no cutouts there. Again, adding a couple millimeters, as I've talked about, to kind of soften that up. Typically when you'll have a full coverage outsole, it will feel, or can feel, a little bit harsh underfoot. Different with this ATPU foam here, and again, adding the extra 2 millimeters of foam there. Looking at the rear of the shoe here, again, of course, you got their lacing loop here, mount to coast. Come on, we need that gator. The rear heel counter is actually quite stiff here. And again, we talked about some elements adding stability here. You have this sidewall here, which wraps a little further back in the lateral side and a little further forward on the inside, kind of cradling, supporting your foot. Same with the heel counter. It's kind of stiff in the rear, and on the sides, I would say moderate towards stiff. So they really want to like keep your heel in check here, because it is, you know, bouncing your foot around. This foam is quite energetic. You could feel when you press on it, you could feel like how quickly it returns that bounce back, even just by squeezing it with your fingers. Flex here underfoot, even flex up front, slight amount of twisting. It's not like fighting back against me, but again, you have full covered rubber here. You're not going to get that full twist here. Again, with this higher stack height, you're not going to get a super twisty shoe, but it is adaptable enough, I find. Certainly on that runnable terrain, if you can mix it up a little bit, twisty turny terrain, as long as it's not like rocky and uneven at the same time. You know, you don't want to throw too much at this bouncy of a foam at this stack height all at once. So you can kind of mix and match elements of technical, uneven, twisty, turny trail running and handle it this one. But like throwing them all together at this shoe, you'll probably want something with a little bit more ground feel and, you know, a little bit more of a secure overall, lower to the ground feel compared to this one. Again, you're looking at 100 miles and beyond for this M1 here. That is this sweet spot here, the mountain cruiser from Mount to Coast. Oh, I forgot to mention here, enhanced toe bumper compared to their other model, certainly compared to the H1. I think the H1 has got something like this all around, and it seems to kind of double up on this front inside toe area there. You know, that's generally where you're going to be kicking the rocks mostly, so a little added bumper here. It's not crazy, but it is firm enough. Thank you for tuning in once again to Humble Running. You will see more Mount to Coast M1 for sure on the channel. I know comments are going to be flooded with questions about comparison testing, and it's really going to be fun to comparison test this shoe against, have a few other models in mind, which I'm sure I will again see in the comments down below. But of course, let me know what you would like to see. If you do find my reviews helpful, again, specifically for this M1 model, I've got that Mount to Coast Humble Running discount code in the description below. The code should automatically be applied at checkout. I'd appreciate you clicking through there, helping out to support Humble Running. Thank you to Mount to Coast for giving this discount code to all the subscribers out there. It is applicable across all Mount to Coast models, so go ahead and check out some of my previous Mount to Coast videos. Perhaps you'll find something that you like or something that's missing from your trail running rotation, and you can save yourself 10% across the board. And lastly, good luck to all of you in your late summer and fall trail and ultra racing. I'm sure many of you out there will be running in this Mount to Coast M1. When you do, let me know how it went down in the comments below. And of course, you can shoot me a message anytime if you have any other questions about the shoe or other Mount to Coast models or anything else I cover in Humble Running. Thank you for tuning in once again. I'll see you out on the trails or maybe even at a race this year. We'll see.